there's still this fear of rejection or judgment or conflict. People pleasing tells me that it's safer to carry it all on my own or to bend so no one else feels discomfort. But what that really does is leave me trudging along all alone. And it robs others of the chance to show up, to meet me, and to decide for themselves. Fostering connection through vulnerability, the People Pleaser podcast validates struggles, celebrates growth, and inspires positive change. Together, let's embrace authenticity, challenge patterns, and evolve with compassion. Hello, friends. It's Corey here, and welcome back to another episode of the People Pleaser podcast. You may have noticed, you may not have, but I took last week off. It's just been a busy couple weeks. I did just celebrate my birthday yesterday, and over the weekend, Brian and I, we really went hard, and we really celebrated in some really special ways. I'm feeling so lucky to have had the experiences that we got to have over the weekend. So we live in Port Townsend, so we made a little bit of a journey into the Cascades, which, for those of you that aren't locally knowledgeable about our various mountain ranges here in Washington, I'm not either, but I'll do my best. We have, from my understanding, two main mountain ranges. One is the Cascade Mountain Range, and the other is the Olympic Mountain Range. So the Cascades are closer to Seattle, if that's a reference point for any of you. And so we were driving towards Seattle, but we kind of overshot it and went further away from it. And I'm not going to use any type of directions because I don't know. I don't know east. I don't know west. I don't know north. I certainly don't know south. So it was about a 3-hour drive from where I live. And all my life growing up on Vancouver Island, which is in Canada, I would look out at Mount Baker. Mount Baker was a part of our skyline in Victoria. In fact, the Olympic Mountains were much closer, but on a really clear day, you could look out and see this giant peak off in the distance, and that was Mount Baker. And so it's been so fun to now live on this side and be like, oh, I'm in the mountains that I spent my entire life looking at. Pretty cool if you're into that. And so on our first day, we left on Friday, and we drove all the way towards Mount Baker, and we went to a hot spring. And I have never actually been to like a hot spring that's just in the middle of the forest. I've been to Solduck Hot Springs, which is kind of like it's in the national park. It's a tourist attraction. They have the hot spring water in like pools. So this was literally in the middle of the woods. It just looked like this big puddle kind of, but it wasn't mucky or anything. There was like just rocks, like really, really small stones. It was pouring rain, which was really unusual for this time of year, but we had the whole place to ourselves, and the water was like a warm, almost hot bath. I couldn't believe it. The water was just like coming up from the ground, and in certain spots you could get these like jets of really hot water kind of coming up. And oh my God, it was just so relaxing to be in the forest with the rain coming down and just in this like warm bath. Unlike anything I'd ever experienced. We felt so lucky. We spent over an hour just like dawdling about in the pool. And when we finally decided, okay, it's time to start packing up, a guy came, like a man showed up, and it was his turn. And it just like couldn't have been more perfect that we had the place to ourselves, and then just as we were leaving, he was coming, and then he got to have the place to himself. So super special. The day after that, Saturday, we went back into the Cascades, but not quite as deep. And we went to the Big Four, which is like these 4 waterfalls that come down the mountains. And it's it's because you're so high up in altitude, you're in the mountains. These waterfalls create these huge glacier type structures. And in the winter, it's like completely covered in snow. It's this, big mound of snow that takes up the whole area. It's large. Like you go there and you're like, oh, this whole place is covered in snow. But in the summer, the snow starts to melt and the waterfalls are still coming down, but the snow begins to melt and it creates these ice caves that you shouldn't, and we did just a little bit, but super dangerous, but you can go into them and like you look up and it's like, it's amazing. I posted photos of them on my Instagram. So if you want to take a peek of what that all looks like, go check out my Instagram. But just like so cool, especially in contrast to the hot spring the day before. I'm like, oh my God, like we are just living in the most magical place. And then that night, the big finale, the big celebration was we went to T-Mobile Stadium, which is where the Seattle Mariners baseball team plays. And we went to the Lumineers concert. And oh my God, like I'm still coming down from it. The stadium was packed. Like I want to say 40,000 people. I have no idea. But the stadium was packed. We had floor seats. We were like 12 rows from the stage. And it was just an incredible performance. The Lumineers are a band that both Brian and I really love. It's music that like we both put on, like we both individually love. And I don't know, we like singing along together to their music in the car. And it's just such feel-good music. I haven't like really fangirled on a band for a long time, but this is a band that I could listen to repeatedly and never get tired of. And just seeing them live, I'm sure a lot of you can relate, but like seeing your band, like the bands you love live, it just deepens your connection. Like you feel so much closer to them. And yeah, it just made me love them so much more. We just had such a great experience. They played for over 2 hours. And yeah, I'm still reeling in that experience. So that was our weekend, totally jam-packed. We got it all in. We got home on Sunday and we picked up Brian's godson, who is here from Maryland for 10 days. And he is actually apprenticing under Brian for the next 10 days in his pressure washing company. And he's piloting or trying it out to see if he might want to eventually move here and work with Brian. So this is like a super cool kid. He's 19, he's highly motivated, and he's taken 2 weeks off work of his job back in Maryland to come and work for Brian. So they're out on a job right now, and we're just working on filling up the schedule to give him as much experience as we can offer him at this time. So that's the good stuff. Unfortunately, yesterday was a pretty difficult day. It was my actual birthday. I turned 39, which we'll unpack that another time. 39 feels crazy. But the day started with me driving an hour and a half out of town with our dog River. And we had to take him into an orthopedic surgeon for a pre-op appointment. And we got the news that it is in his best interest to have surgery on both of his knees. And so he's a German Shepherd. He's only 6 years old. The rationale is that he has a lot of life left and that this surgery could really improve the quality of his life. Unfortunately, this isn't something that we could have prevented. The vet sort of chalked it up to bad luck. It's injury that she sees in all kinds of dogs, all sizes, all ages, all breeds, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, in River's knees, in his back legs, there are ligaments that help stabilize him. And these ligaments are just like poor design. And the way that the knee is positioned, there's a ton of pressure and impact on these ligaments to stabilize like the bulk of his weight in those like load-bearing back legs. And so I'm not going to get too technical, but basically they have to cut the bone in the knee and move it so that instead of it being kind of on an angle where the ligament gets like this, the bottom of the angle, like the load, they bring the bone up so it's a little bit more of a plateau. It's like flat to distribute the weight more evenly. And so over the past couple months, we've noticed a significant decline in River. His stability has really gotten really bad. He's not putting any weight on his left foot. He's limping. If he picks up the pace, he's lifting his leg altogether. And his left side is just worse than his right side. But the vet, through multiple x-rays that we've now had, have said that he has this problem in both his knees. The left is just further along. And so they are recommending that he get this surgery in both of his knees. And so yesterday, not to make it about me, but on my birthday, we learned that we are going to have to spend $11,000 on our dear boy's knees. And it sent... it sent me into this like spiral of like these things never happen at a good time. I've never been in a position where I'm like financially prepared for these types of circumstances. I've never had a spare $11,000 just sitting in. I've never made enough to be that far ahead. Now, this isn't to say that we don't have an emergency fund. We do, but it's not $11,000 yet. And so yesterday was a really difficult day of just like basically feeling like we didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know how we were going to get River the help he needs. And I was talking to a friend yesterday. She called me to wish me a happy birthday. And as soon as she called, just like hearing her voice, I just was like a mess. I was like, this is not a good day. Rah. And I started to just explain to her what has been going on. And she suggested making a GoFundMe. She said that she did that many years ago for a dog of hers and had a really positive experience. She felt that people were really generous, and it can offer people an opportunity to like feel like they're helping even in small ways, like especially given the world these days, it can feel hard to know like how to help in a tangible way. And so she said, you know what, there's no harm in trying. You just put it out there with no real expectations and just see what happens. And so last night, I started to put our GoFundMe page together. And honestly, like my friend was like encouraging me to do this, I got so sweaty. I couldn't believe it. I was in a pure panic mode at the idea of asking for help. Like I felt it all over my body. I immediately wanted to shut the idea down. Like, no. Like people can't do that. That's asking for way too much. Like, I don't feel comfortable putting myself out there in that way. But I did fight through that, even though in my body I was so physically uncomfortable. And I had to really recognize that resistance that was being stirred up in me. And when I started to really unpack like what was going on in my mind, I didn't want to be a burden on anyone. I didn't want to add to anyone's stress or assume that they had money to spare. And deeper than that, I was afraid of rejection. I was worried that people would respond with their reasons why they couldn't help, and then I would feel like ashamed or just icky for asking in the first place. And here's what I realized. When I make those assumptions, when I do all this work, this mental gymnastics, I'm actually making the decision for other people. I'm deciding for them that they can't or won't help. instead of trusting that they're capable of using their own discernment in making that type of decision for themselves. Asking for help isn't just about my need. It's about trusting others enough to let them decide for themselves. And help can look it can take shape in so many different ways, right? Like I noticed that I felt way more comfortable asking people to share the link than I did to like directly ask them to donate. But I wanted to present people with, options on like what their support could look like. Just a quick little break here. If you're enjoying this conversation, come hang out with me on Instagram at Corey Senya. That's CORIESENIA. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can do that through Buy Me a Coffee. All the links are waiting for you in the show notes. All right, let's get back into it. This actually came up in another way too, in our business, in mine and my husband's pressure washing business. So the context of that is that we sent out an estimate, and this was for a few different services, and the customer came back and was resistant to the price. She pushed back by saying that our price was higher than what another company had charged her last year. And so I explained our reasoning, the rationale. I addressed her concerns. I was even, flexible to a degree with the pricing. I think I, was willing to take $100 off, something like that. But I was staying firm. Like I really wasn't what she was asking for and what she was kind of presenting, I was not going down that road with her. I felt confident, I felt assured, I felt that our rationale was coming from a very reasonable place. But this morning, when her response came to my inbox, I noticed something completely different in myself. I didn't want to open it. I was afraid that I was about to face her boundary after I had finally stood in mine, which it's like I'm ready to make boundaries, but I'm still pretty resistant or, fearful of people setting them with me. So I could put my truth out there, but then when that was being reciprocated, I wanted to completely run away from her response. And that's where I see the same pattern, whether it's asking for help or standing my ground, that there's still this fear of rejection or judgment or conflict. People pleasing tells me that it's safer to carry it all on my own or to bend so no one else feels discomfort. But what that really does is leave me trudging along all alone. And it robs others of the chance to show up, to meet me, and to decide for themselves. The truth is that connection and respect live in a space of trust. Trusting others to handle their own choices. Trusting myself enough to hold my boundaries. So if you're listening to this and it resonates, maybe take a moment and ask yourself, where are you avoiding asking for help? Where are you afraid to stand in your boundary? Because here's what I'm learning. You're allowed to ask for help. You're allowed to take up space. And you're allowed to stand firm in what you need, even if it's uncomfortable. So I'm really pushing myself with, the GoFundMe is a great opportunity for me to push myself. I today sent it out to a community group of people, mostly strangers, and just putting it out there. There's no harm in putting it out there. And I'm actually reminded of this account that I follow on Instagram. Her name is Nora. I'm forgetting her last name off the top of my head. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yes, Nora DeKaiser. And what I love about what Nora does is she did this whole rejection challenge where she set herself up for all these different situations and scenarios where she was anticipating being rejected. And it was her whole initiative, her whole goal was to face rejection and to just like give herself that experience of knowing that rejection is never actually as bad as we make it out to be. And it's actually like our fear of rejection that takes up like the most energy, where we're in that like, what's going to happen? I don't want it to happen. I'm trying to control what's going to happen. So she would put herself in these wild different scenarios where she was like fully prepared to be rejected. Like one scenario that's coming to mind is, I think she was in a hotel lobby and there was like a family there, and she just walked up to the family and offered to babysit the kids. Like just right there on the spot, no context, not knowing these people at all. And of course they were like, no, we're good. But it's just like having those moments of like receiving a no, receiving a rejection, and being like, okay, well, that's that. Like, that's where it kind of ends. Like, you can just carry on. But she also had these like amazing moments where people were like, sure, like took her up on her offer, as, you know, wild and out there as they may have been, which was also just like a funny part of her experience that she was able to share, is just like, you know, sometimes the world surprises you, and when you're teeing yourself up for rejection, you might actually not be rejected. You may actually be accepted. So I loved that. I loved that it was just such a fun way to play around with that idea of rejection. Right now, we are in a season of our life where there is just so much going on. We have so much on our plates, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. And so this has been, you know, an experience where Brian and I are looking at everything we have on our plate, and we can plainly see it's more than we have the capacity for. So it is an opportunity for us to not just necessarily like reevaluate, like, okay, what do we need to take off? Like what needs to kind of give? It's also a chance for us to look at, okay, where is there opportunity to ask for support? What kind of help do we need? How do we make this more of a communal effort? Because that's the other thing. Like, when we're not asking for help, we are isolating ourselves. We're keeping ourselves in these like self-constructed boxes where we think like, okay, well, nobody can help me. Nobody wants to help me. I'm all alone. And for me, that can really easily turn into this victim mentality, which has not been helpful, has not been productive. That actually just like completely takes the wind out of my sails. And I'm then stuck with that feeling of, well, feeling sorry for myself. And that is just the opposite of productive. That's the opposite of healthy. And so I also see it as an opportunity to bring people in, to start asking questions, to start, you know, resourcing ourselves with the incredible people that we have in our lives. Like even last night on the phone to my sister, I started to just ask her, like, how do you do this thing? Because she does the books for a family member's business. She works for a family business, and she's been doing it a couple years longer than I have. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a sister, like a literal sister, who is tackling all the same challenges that I'm tackling when it comes to bookkeeping and accounting and the business side of a business. And I just felt so reassured. I also felt so connected to my sister when I was able to like see her as a resource and give her, you know, not that this is like, oh, I'm giving her such a gift, but like she then got to share that knowledge, which I think for me, when I get to a place in my learning where I'm ready to share it and being able to teach others, that's a pretty gratifying experience. And so opening those doors to more collaboration, more resource sharing, I don't know. I just only see that being a positive thing for everybody involved. And if it's not a positive thing for someone, then I have to trust that they're going to let me know that they don't have the capacity, they don't have the time, they don't have the resources. And it's not about me. It's just where we're all at on our own journeys in this wild and complex life. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, as always. I can't wait to Keep connecting. I hope you enjoy your day. Happy August to you all. Mwah. Once again, this is Corey with the People Pleaser Podcast. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. If you like what you heard, please consider leaving a 5-star rating and a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode.